Yo, yo, yo. Welcome to NS9 Live. I'm your host, Anthony DiNardo. With me, we have Jim. We have Tyler. What's up?
It's good to be back. I haven't been on a show in a while.
I know, for real.
Yeah.
We're glad to have you back.
I don't think we've won a game since the last time
Since the Clinton
we've all been
administration.
together.
It's been rough, man.
I think last week the show was Who Can Turn It Around? And we all gave our answers. And the real answer was nobody. Turnaround never happened.
So this week, now who can turn it around? I don't think there's any Angels in the outfield, guys.
No, the Angels are all dead. The Angels forgot about us.
It wasn't a good week. Man, this has been terrible. The Pirates have dropped 10 in a row. 11 and 12. Just bad. Actually,
I think the graphic we put out today was July 20th. The team had a 25% chance at the playoffs, something like that.
Yes.
And today it was at 0.5%, which may as well just be zero.
Okay, do the ad read. Let's get out of here.
BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything online sports betting. Right now, you can receive a 50% free bet of up to $250 on your first deposit bet on anything from UFC to baseball to Formula One racing. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get on the action. Use promo code BELIEVE, that is BLEAV, for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. BetOnline, the game starts here. So, guys, Pirates play tomorrow. We'll be on again. Goodbye.
That's what it feels like, man.
So can I want to just say a little bit about my West Coast trip.
Sure. That's something we can talk about. Maybe
Yeah.
kind of fun.
Before we get into the whole, we're going to get into what needs to be done here, right? But
how long should they fast forward if they're listening to the pod?
If you're listening to the podcast, fast forward about 5 minutes or so. But I want to say this: Petco Park was my second time there. It's elite. It's one of the best ballparks in America. The fans were great. It was a Monday night. The place was packed to the rafters. Tuesday night, the place was packed. It's pretty incredible. What fans will do when a team just tries to win and they're playing really well. The place was electric. Highly recommend if you're ever debating on going to a Pirates Padres series out in San Diego. Can't recommend it enough. It's a great town, great ballpark. I guarantee you'll enjoy yourself. It was my first time at Dodger Stadium, though. Let me say this. I hate that place. That place is awful. It's awful. It's old. There's from a viewing standpoint, it's fine. If you're there to watch baseball, it's fine. But the location of it is just dreadful. And when I'm thinking of a ballpark, the location of the ballpark plays a big role in the overall experience of going to the ballpark. This place you can't get there very easily. It's up on a hill in the middle of nowhere. And then when I mean middle of nowhere, you're still in Los Angeles, but you can't, it's hard to get to. It's surrounded by this giant parking lot. So yeah, it just getting there was difficult. Getting out was difficult. Saturday night, there were 50,000 fans there. And it took 90 minutes for me to just get an Uber from after the game. It was just absurd. And then it took me another hour to get back to the hotel. I was only staying 7 miles away. It took me an hour to get back. I'm happy I went one time, never going back. Never going back to that place.
You went twice.
I went Saturday and Sunday. I would not have gone Sunday though if I didn't already have tickets. Like I literally almost just skipped Sunday's game altogether and just almost went to San Diego early. That's how bad it was.
And that is a true story because you did actually talk about that.
Yeah. Like one of the least enjoyable fan experiences of my life.
I actually do have a similar experience with Wrigley. I hated Wrigley. I hate Wrigley Field.
I love Wrigley.
Wrigley's
one of my favorites.
I think it's an absolute dump.
So you were there
like
before
crap.
Renovations? Like
no,
so they renovated.
I was there before renovations for sure.
They renovated Wrigley in like 2017.
Oh yeah, I was there far before that. It smelled like a dump. It looked like a dump. It was a dump.
I'll say this: pre-renovations, Wrigley was a dump. It's one of my favorite ballparks right now.
Well, maybe I'll go back one day. Probably not because screw the Cubs.
Yeah, but man,
go there for a playoff game, Tyler.
Dodger Stadium was rough. Dodger Stadium was rough. Fans were all great. Fans were great everywhere, but
the question everybody wants to know: did you get a Dodger dog?
You know what? I didn't even get a Dodger dog. Yeah, that's
what?
No, I didn't.
Well, now you have to
Sunday
go back.
I was there. Well, so first off, the Sunday I was there was the day game, and it was like 100 degrees, and I couldn't eat anything. It was so hot. The Saturday night game, the crowds were crazy, so there were lines everywhere. My wife and I, we split these like barbecue pork sliders that they had, and they were okay. They were nothing great, but yeah, no Dodger dog, unfortunately. I'm not really a huge eating food at the ballpark guy. I'll do it at spring training because like it's a little more laid back, but during the regular season, I'm pretty much glued to my seat.
Okay.
Whatever you say, Jim.
Yeah.
I know, right?
All right, what is that? I said 5 minutes to fast forward if you wanted to get past the ballpark stuff. But no, overall it was a good trip. Other than the Pirates lost all 4 games that I went to. So,
and honestly, I don't think we can even blame you this time, Jim. It's not even like, oh, the Rosati curse took care of them. This Pirates team is just terrible.
Yeah, they were rough. I will say this: Ben Heller didn't give up a single run while I was out there.
I know his ERA's down to like 4 or 40
actually
something,
looked pretty good. But no, it was a rough road trip. It was fun though. Went to the beach in San Diego, went to Balboa Park. It's a good town. Listen, if you haven't been to San Diego, can't recommend it enough.
Well, that was the peak of the show.
From here on out,
if that was terrible, boy, do we have more in store for you.
Worse.
Yeah. So, shall we start talking about the Pittsburgh Pirates?
Do we have to?
Let's do it. Let's yeah, I guess that's
feel like
what we're here for, right?
I don't know what everybody eat for dinner.
I had
pad thai.
I didn't have the pad thai. I just had chicken and vegetables.
I had nothing, but that's cool.
My wife had the pad thai.
Yeah, the pad thai was good.
Nice.
Guess we have to talk about the Pirates now.
You only 30 seconds. So
yeah.
But anyways, I mean, the title of this show is it time for the Pirates to make a shakeup? And I think that's clearly where we're at right now. Tyler, you and Neil had the post-game show last night. I think it was good dialogue also. Kind of sparked, I think, some thoughts and ideas for today's show. It's kind of been, I think, what's on a lot of people's minds right now, too. We see the Derek Shelton quotes every single day at this point in time, it seems, which just drives you even more and more insane. Yeah, it's 10 in a row. This team is now well below 500. 6 games, right? 6 games under 500, or are they 7 now? God, I need to look.
Lost count.
It's too many to count. I believe they're 8. I think they're 8 games under 500.
They are 8 games under 500 now. 8. Yeah. 8 games under 500. This team's going nowhere. It's year 5. I mean, there's so many ways you can take this. But I guess what's most important is knowing that the season is over. It's now look forward to 2025 time, which there's still things in this season that matter, of course. It's not like we can just end it today. But does something need to be done right now?
Yes. And I think more than just something needs done. I think multiple things. It's multiple things need done at multiple levels of this organization. And I don't know where we want to start this thing, but I think the absolute easiest thing to do, right, is to shake up the 26-man roster. Like, if we just want to start there, that's the absolute easiest thing to do at this point. And there's three main culprits, in my opinion, and that is G1 Bay, Jared Triolo, and Yasmani Grandal.
Yep.
Those are my three main culprits. And here's why. You want to hear why? All right. G1 Bay, 60 plate appearances on the year. He ranks 439th out of 469 people. 469 players have accumulated 60 plate appearances in Major League Baseball this year. G1 Bay ranks 439th with a 44 weighted runs created plus. All right. That's the first guy there. Second guy, Yasmani Grandal. Out of the people out there who have accumulated 170 plate appearances, there have been 338 of them. Yasmani Grandal ranks 329th in weighted runs created plus, 54 weighted runs created plus. And his defense sucks. I mean, the framing's decent, but like, he can't make a play, he can't throw. He's dropping balls, pass balls, wild pitches. Like, when he throws the ball back to the pitcher, runners are scoring, right? So like, that's shakeup number 2. And then shakeup number 3, somehow he's been on this team every single day of the 2024 season. Out of people who have accumulated 300 plate appearances or more, there are 212 of them. He ranks 210th, and that's Jared Triolo. So you're just talking about 3 guys who are they just don't belong in the major leagues. They don't belong. And it would be one thing if there was absolutely nobody there to replace them, but there are. You don't have a lot of depth in AAA, but the guys that you do are easy replacements to these 3 players, right? You've got G1 Bay, send him down, bring up Billy Cook. Jared Triolo, send him down, bring up Nick York. Yasmani Grandal, send him down or cut him, whatever you want to do. DFA him is what you would be doing. Bring up Henry Davis. We've already talked about there's nothing left for Henry Davis to learn in AAA. Just let him hit major league pitching. It can't be worse. It can't get worse than this. What are the Pirates going to do? Lose 10 games in a row with Henry Davis on their team, right?
Oh, no.
Yeah, like, we've already done that, right? We're well past that point. So, like, when it comes to just what is the absolute easiest thing you can do, it's replacing those 3 guys.
Amen. There's nothing left for me to say. That takes care of everything. So on to you, Tai Tai.
I mean, that's just level 1. Like I said, we're going to go through multiple levels tonight. That's level 1.
Yeah. So Jim talked about that first level there. And obviously, I think that's a clear-cut thing that needs to happen as soon as possible. And it doesn't matter if they perform or not, because you already know the guys that are here are not performing. Like, we know G1 Bay cannot hit major league pitching. He hasn't done it. He can't field at the major league level. He hasn't done it. Jared Triolo, I have still some sort of hope for him, but at this point, he's been here every single day, and he has not performed. We talk accountability. Where's the accountability here? How's this guy stick around? Yasmani Grandal, you really want to talk accountability? He would have been gone a long time ago. let's just cut the head off the snake here. Derek Shelton should not be here anymore. Plain and simple. There's not another.
We haven't gotten to that
Tyler
level
couldn't
yet.
wait to get up to that other
Yeah,
level.
I'm taking this level 1 to level 2, and I know there's 3, 4, 5 that we still need to get to, but I'm taking it to level 2. Guys,
I don't even think Shelton's level 2. I think Shelton's level 3.
no, I think he's
okay.
level. I actually might argue he's level 1. He's the easiest thing to get rid of. And guys, there's not another guy in Major League Baseball history with as many games managed as him as that have the results that he has. I tried to dig through it earlier today. Everyone I could find was like 1800s, 1940. In modern baseball, there's not many dudes hanging around for 5 years with his record. Jim, you look like you have another guy in mind. Who is it?
No. I mean, that I was to strengthen your point. If you haven't read it yet, like Tim Williams put out a really good article yesterday. DK put out a good article today. Part of DK's article. If you are 55 years old or younger, you have never in your lifetime seen a manager coach as many games as Derek Shelton has with a winning percentage as low as Derek Shelton. He's literally coached more games and lost at a worse rate than any manager since 1969. 1969. There's only been 4 ever. There's only been 4 in the history of baseball who have coached as many games as Derek Shelton has with a winning percentage as low as him. And none of them have happened in the last 55 years. So to your point, Derek Shelton is in almost, and when it comes to modern baseball, this is uncharted territory. Managers do not stick around this long and have a record as bad as he's had.
I would also argue, I didn't look into it, but I don't think in the big 4 sports, I don't think there's a coach that would stick around as long as Derek Shelton has. I think if you looked into the big 4 sports here, there's nobody with a winning percentage worse than his in the amount of time he's been here. They get fired. That's what happens. If you're this bad, and we do discuss a lot that I don't know how much to blame Derek Shelton is. But at some point, results matter, man. Results matter. You have to do better. And all you've done is fail. And all he has done since he's arrived is fail. And he failed too well that they got Polsky. So good job, Derek.
But that was also a stroke of luck. They had to win the lottery now.
Right. But
no, of course he gave him good odds.
Fail. It's been a failure. Plain and simple.
If you're go ahead, Dinar.
No, go ahead. You were on. Go ahead.
I'll say if you're comparing these first 5 years of Ben Cherington's tenure to maybe the first 5 years of Neil Huntington's tenure, I think you could say that there's some parallels to how this season has gone versus how 2012 has gone, right? Like that 2012 team was in the playoff hunt and then collapsed at the end, right? That's kind of what we're seeing here. The difference is that John Russell didn't make it this far, right? John Russell was brought in to kind of lead that young rebuilding team. And then when it was time to say, okay, you know what, now it's time to win, they brought in Clint Hurdle. They brought in a guy with a lot of experience who's been there before, and they brought him in, and you kind of saw that right there was the moment of, like, that was when things switched from, okay, we're rebuilding to now we're winning. Like, we're trying to win now. That was the moment. And when you don't have that moment, it's almost like that switch never flips, right? Like, we haven't seen that switch flip because we're still being led by the same person who just took us through some of the worst years we've ever seen of Pirates baseball.
Yeah. So I want to say these words carefully because I don't want people leaving the show because of Neil. But here's what I want to say. Here's where you can play both sides of it. To what you're talking about with Derek Shelton. No one's ever done this. No one's ever done it because they're not given that leash of being this bad for that long and saying, here you go, continue. But let's look at the other side of it. If you want to even make the argument of, well, it's not Derek Shelton's fault. He's been given a terrible roster. That's true. Like, also the same sense, Ben Cherington, that's another level. We'll get there. Tyler, before we'll get there. Another level. But like Ben Cherington's also failed Derek Shelton. He's allowed him to accumulate this much time and that many losses because he's given him a pretty piss poor roster for 5 years now. So, like, on one end, if you want to say, you know what, I believe in Derek Shelton, this is why I'm keeping you here, and I'm speaking in the way of Ben Cherington. This is why I'm keeping you here because I do believe in you. Then today, you have to sit here and own it and say, you know what, I have failed you. I've failed you, Derek Shelton, because I believe in you. And at this point in time, I've given you being the worst manager in 55 years because I've failed you. Now, mind you, I don't believe it's totally that as well. I think he has had a piss poor team to play with for so long, and now it is go time. And we talk about this time and time again. Like, there are characteristics of Derek Shelton I appreciate. There are a lot of things that I don't understand. But in all, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is this team has been a loser organization. Starts at the top. Leadership is all like it's exactly what we're talking about, Jim. Like, you've carried this team through the bad. At this point in time, and it's going back to the talk I had about Derek Shelton very, very beginning of this year too. Like, it's no fault. No, take it back. I don't want to say no fault. But circumstances are what they are. Shelty, you gotta go. This is what it is. And, signing up for this job, the writing was on the wall. Like, this is what happens when you take over a rebuild. This is why a lot of times young, new, inexperienced managers come in. Like, this is just the growing pains. Like, you know what? You got your foot wet. You became a manager. You went through this. But at this point in time, we need direction. We need new voices. We need leadership. It's time to win. Results do matter, like Tyler said. The results always matter. The results were just different before. Results was like, how are we progressing? How are we developing? How are we learning? There's a change now. There's a fundamental change in the philosophy and the way this organization has to go going forward. It's not about development. It's not about carrying through. It's now about the results are now wins and losses. And now that's why this matters. We're talking about the wins and losses. Yes, he was dealt a bad hand, but you know what? It is what it is. You knew this day was going to come when you took this job. So it's time to go. It's time to bring in the new leadership. Like you're talking about the Clint Hurdle to phrase it in that sense, right? You're bringing this new leadership on. Now people know. That's the catalyst. No, like you said, like no one knows. It's all the same. It's all the same. I've been a loser. And we say that loosely. Like these people aren't losers, but it's a losing culture. It's a losing mentality. It's the status quo right now. When you bring in new leadership, you bring in someone new, something's changed. We got to change. And now I'm going to listen to this voice, which is a different voice.
So we've been doing this podcast a long time. Maybe not the post-game shows, but we've been talking for basically since Derek Shelton's been here. Mm-hmm. The three of us have been on this podcast. And I distinctly remember talking on Thursday nights during the COVID season about games that this team, they just did not put themselves in the right opportunity to win. It didn't feel like they were trying to win. And I remember saying, Derek Shelton's not the guy that I want to lead this organization when they're ready to win, because right now he doesn't look like he wants to win. He's buying into the tank. And I think I remember Jim saying that organizations tank. The players on the team, the coaches, they don't tank. At that point, it felt like Derek Shelton was tanking. Well, let's fast forward a couple years, 4 years. This is why I don't want Derek Shelton. I still don't feel like he's a winner. He bought into the tank. he didn't show the resolve, the urgency, anything that you want out of your major league manager at that point. And there's still guys here in 2024 that were on that team that still have to look at the same guy who basically just said, no, we're cool losing right now. I don't want that guy. I'm going back to 2020. I don't want that same guy that they had then.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of goes back to the John Russell thing. Like, did John Russell get dealt a bad hand? Yeah. John Russell never got to manage a good team, right? And by the time the Pirates started turning the page, he never got that shot. But that's just how it is. It's just how it is. And you can say, you know what, there have been other, like Baltimore stuck with their manager, Arizona stuck with their manager, and it's worked out for those teams. But the player development worked out for those teams, honestly, is what it was. And yeah, at the end of the day, the players win the game, but the manager is in charge of the 26-man roster and the games that are being played. And like you said, Tyler, we mentioned it 4 years ago. Like, this guy doesn't seem like he's trying to win all of these games, which at the time the Pirates were trying to lose, right? But that, again, that's not something like a manager shouldn't be trying to lose. A GM trying to lose, that's a strategy, right? But a manager should never be like, we're okay not winning this game. The manager should be going out there trying to win every game. And there were some times throughout the past few years where it didn't necessarily seem that way. And maybe that switch, right, that needed to be flipped, it's just harder to flip when you're just used to not having to do that. It's harder to do it. It's like in anything. Like, you kind of just get used to losing. If you're used to losing, it's hard to all of a sudden stop losing. Time for a change. I would have said it was time for a change before, but it's clearly time for a change now. If you're a manager and you're in a playoff race and you are given, like as much as we want to bash the deadline, like I gave the deadline a C+. It wasn't good, right? Ben Cherington barely passed, but he did add players to this team that were better than the ones that were on it before. Like, that's a fact. He did. The amount of impact those players give is one thing, but they were better. And what happens as soon as those players come in? Like, you reel off 11 losses in 12 games. I'm sorry. Like, you can't stick around after that. You're done. That's it. I'm sure Derek Jones is a nice guy, but you can't coach this team anymore.
My biggest thing is not even the 11 games. It's, once again, to go back, you talked about with Baltimore, they kept the same manager. Like, it can happen, right? But I think the biggest thing is, and I'm not that close, I can't talk on a personal level and say this happened or didn't happen. But again, the results, the expectations, that has all changed. The messaging has to change. I don't know if in Baltimore the messaging changed. I don't know if before it was like, we're okay with it. And now, you know what? There's no expectations. There's going to be accountability. That's my biggest problem. When you're in the playoff race, when there was a trade deadline, and again, people, you can debate all you want if they were buyers or not buyers. Technically speaking, they were buyers, right? They were buyers. What level we can debate, but they were buyers. You spin off these many losses, and out of Derek Shelton's mouth is, I think there's a state of we need to catch a break. I mean, it's one of those situations where you haven't played bad baseball. I think we've lost since the break 9 one-run games. We've lost during the stretch 8 6-1 games. Then he has another one that comes out and says, we have to continue to play better baseball, and we have to do that every day. To some extent, it's wins and losses. Yeah, we've played well for 3.5 months. We haven't played well the last 10 days. This is what we're talking about. The messaging that's being relayed right now is the same messaging when it's a developmental state of we need results. It's wins and losses don't really matter right now. It's if you're playing good baseball or bad baseball. And we've been playing better baseball, and that's a good thing. We want to get better. We're playing better baseball, and that's what matters. We're developing. We're getting there. This isn't the message you want in a team and organization that results matter as far as wins. There was no accountability in here. There was no sense of urgency. It was, well, we've been kind of unlucky and we want to play better baseball. We didn't. And, well, shit happens. That's the problem. That is why there needs to be a new voice in this club, because that's not the voice that's getting you over the hump. That's not the voice that's saying, you know what? I love you, O'Neill. I love you, Brian. I love you, Henry, whatever, but you need to play better. This doesn't hold up anymore. And I want that out there. There is a level of accountability in the Pittsburgh Pirates. We are the new Pittsburgh Pirates. We expect to win. We deserve to win. We're going to go out there and create wins and not just have bad luck and tuck our tails between our legs and say, well, we tried. We gave it our darndest, but we just didn't succeed. Sorry, guys. Maybe next year. That's not the voice I need.
I mean, plain and simple, this is why guys as managers don't survive rebuilds, because you go through a stretch where you really do have to manage differently. And the guys that are the hangarounds, they're not buying that stuff. Plain and simple, they're not buying it. And Derek Shelton's still selling the same stuff he sold in 2020. He's not the guy. And Derek Shelton might be a good manager if he goes elsewhere, but it's not happening here. I think it's very apparent it's not happening in Pittsburgh.
You mentioned like it's not the 10-game losing streak, but I think that's it. Like that's the nail in the coffin. Because guess what? If the Pirates had just played 500 ball from the trade deadline on and finished 83 and 79, Derek Shelton probably comes back next year.
I think it's almost embarrassing that he's still here today.
Yeah, like he made a 7-game improvement. Like they've been improving every year. Got above 500. All right, next year, you've got Paul Skeens, you've got Mitch Keller, you've got Jared Jones. Make the playoffs, right? But if he's a 10-game losing streak at this point of the season, that's it. These games were so high leverage. Like we talked about it for weeks, how important each and every game was, basically from the start of July on. You lose some games in April, fine. You lose some games in May, whatever. But you go on a 10-game losing streak at this stage of the season when you just added to your team. It's not acceptable. And like people use the word accountability. Like the accountability to that is that it's not acceptable. And you can no longer be the manager of this baseball team. That's it.
I don't think any of us disagree. Again, I just go over it, and like, my biggest thing is how he even responds to it. It's not even the fact that he lost 10 in a row in the most crucial part. It was also the fact that how he responds to it, and I can't.
Yeah, I guess my thing is like, even if he responded in a way that I liked, like he still lost 10 in a row, and that's
exactly
what matters.
Sure,
You know?
but like what matters to me most is the way he responded. Is that's it. Like seeing those words come out, we have to move on. You might want to make a case and say it's on the players. You might, and that's why you lost these 10 games and all that. This is you. You can't put what you just said. You can't put on your leadership anyone else. That's you, Derek Shelton. This voice doesn't work anymore. And maybe that's why it's not working.
Yeah, I mean, Jim, I do agree with you that I don't give a damn what he said after it. You just lost 10 games in a row. He could go up there and raise hell to all the media and tell the fans that we're going to be better. I guarantee a win next game. It doesn't matter. You just lost 10 games in a row. You knocked yourself out of the wild card race easily.
In a week and a half.
Yeah, easily. You just completely lost everything. But I also do agree with Donardo that and it's kind of something that has built on Derek Shelton, where I don't know if we really realize how often he just doesn't take accountability of himself. When has Derek Shelton ever just been like, yeah, I made the wrong move there? It's always like, well, he didn't execute a pitch there. We like what he's done, but he just didn't execute. It's never, I made the wrong move, ever. And I don't care about that either. Win games. And that's where I go back to Jim.
Yeah, that's my thing. Like, I don't care what Derek Shelton says in his post-game press conference. The only thing I care about is there a W or an L next to that game when you look at the schedule? And 10 L's to basically kick off August. You can't stay.
Do you guys know of a single like professional organization that would keep a guy at this point like Derek Shelton? Is there anywhere that would keep this guy? Jim, Louisville would have fired him.
Well, I mean, like we talked about. I mean, since 1969, no manager has a winning percentage as bad as Derek Shelton, who has coached as many games as he has. So to answer your question, no. Like it hasn't happened. Like unless you're over the age of 55, it's never happened in your life. Which I don't even think Derek Shelton's 55.
Like we're in unprecedented territory with our manager right now.
Derek Shelton's 54. In Derek Shelton's entire lifetime, no coach has done this.
Nobody. Coach has been as bad as him.
Over a period of time,
lifetime.
As long as he has. In his lifetime.
You know what? Congratulations. Does that deserve the Cherington Shelton first overall pick celebration?
Yeah. The one thing I guess I will disagree with you on is you said, all of us are in agreement here. And I'm in agreement like on the Shelton thing, but we were talking about the levels, right? I started with the 3 players.
Yeah,
Shelton isn't level 2. Level 2 for me is Andy Haynes. Like if we're talking about like and it's hard to do all of this at once, but it's like all of this isn't like none of this is working. None of this is working right now. You bring in Andy Haynes in 2012. I'm 2022. 2012. Ooh,
I was graduating high school.
2022, you bring in Andy Haynes. And you finish the year with the 28th best offense. 28 out of 30 in Andy Haynes' first year. Most teams wouldn't even bring anyone back after that. After one year, you sucked by. Nope. Andy Haynes comes back.
The Pirates didn't even deal with that. That's why Andy Haynes was here.
Yeah. 2023 comes along. Andy Haynes is right back at it. I think 25th in baseball in 2023, but still bad. This year, 27th best offense in baseball in year 3 of Andy Haynes. The offense just isn't getting better. It's not getting any better at all. Players are coming here and they're immediately getting worse. Prospects are being called up and they can't hit. It's like Andy Haynes is kind of like the head guy. Like he's the hitting coach at the major league level. But I mean, this is also just an entire organizational failure in hitting philosophy. And Andy Haynes just happens to be in charge of the hitting, right? He's in charge of the hitting. He's the hitting coach. If your entire organization is failing at hitting, the hitting coach got to go. Hitting coach got to go. There's no one to even get excited about down the road who could help this offense out. No one. Like you got excited about some young players who made their debuts over the last 400 days or so. But none of them have done anything. Nick Gonzalez is your best success story. Nick Gonzalez has a weighted runs created plus of 80. He's 20% below average. And you know what? That's only that because he was worse before And then this offseason, he was like, you know what? I'm going to actually go back to what I was doing before I came into your organization. And that's what made him better. Like, the only success stories we're seeing offensively is when players say, you know what? I'm actually going to go do something else. Brian Hayes last year. You know what? I'm actually going to go behind your back and see this AA hitting coach. And what happens? Brian Hayes all of a sudden starts hitting. They fire him. What happens? Brian Hayes turns into a pumpkin, like Tyler says. Rowdy Tellez.
Tyler, who Rowdy call?
Rowdy comes in.
Papa.
Sucks. What does he do? He calls someone. What am I doing? Help me. And he's been good ever since. So I said, Tim Williams breaks down a lot of this in his article, but it's just every single player who comes in, just they get worse. Andy Haynes has not made anybody better under his tutelage. He's got to go. So like I said, that's my level 2 is Andy Haynes. If there's one person on the Major League coaching staff who deserves to stay here, I think it's Oscar Marine. Like, I think Oscar Marine has done a pretty good job. Like, I'm not doing anything with him. But Andy Haynes, time to go. You're failing. The players that you're in charge of are failing. Yeah, you can't be here anymore.
100%.
So I guess the reason I think I would put Derek Shelton and Andy Haynes in the same category. Like, one goes, the other one has to go. And especially if you fire Derek Shelton, there's no reason to keep Andy Haynes around, because who's the guy that has employed Andy Haynes? It's Derek Shelton. And if he wanted to be better, he would have fired Andy Haynes 2 years ago. Like, Andy Haynes has not given you anything. Nobody has gotten better since they've arrived. Oscar Marine, I mean, he can come or go. I don't really care. I think it's more developmental wise why the success has happened. I don't really know if Oscar Marine's done anything. I think it's more at a lower level in the pitching realm.
That's fair.
I guess my 2 cents there is I'm fine with Oscar Marine at this point in time also. But I think it's Ray Searage like, if this makes sense. The whole thought and the whole talk was, we're going to bring the best out of all the pitchers. We're going to work with their strengths. That's how we're going to develop, right? And I feel as if really what's happened is they've now found a mold that works, and now they're molding that. Like with Searage, like, this is what we're going to do. And the Pirates said, like, you know what? We want fastball, we want slider, and we're going to target guys and we want extension for lefties, soft toss. You know, like it's like the Pirates have targeted what they want, and now they're going after that mold, as opposed to, we're going to be able to develop every pitcher to their strengths. This guy isn't what our mold is right now, but we can bring that out of them. I feel like, but again, like, they're doing a good job at it, so that's why I'm okay with Oscar Marine. But I feel like it's kind of back to the Ray Searage thing. Like, this is what works, and we're going to mold you guys to this. And they're finding the people that work for it, at least, you know, that have those strengths, and building them up. But I guess that's my take on it. I don't think he's really just bringing in pitchers and saying, fixing you. They're identifying the pitchers that will work under their strengths and doing it that way. And probably what's going to happen is one day this isn't going to work for Major League pitching, because it's going to evolve, and that's when Marine will go, like Searage.
So I just don't know if I agree with that. I don't really know if I guess Quintana worked out. Yeah, absolutely. Quintana worked out. I don't really know what else Marine has done. Like, Mitch Keller went to Tread.
I think you still have to give Marine credit for, like, the pitching, not just at the major league level. Like, Marine's at off-season trainings, like Marine's in charge of the pitching for the organization.
Right.
Like, yeah, there's a whole philosophy, but like, Marine's the guy in charge. He's the guy who's coaching everybody. He's coaching everybody at the major league level, but like, he's doing a pretty good job. He's doing if there's one thing this team is good at, it's pitching.
Yeah, but I mean, they fell into Paul Skeens, and That happened, and Mitch Keller
Sure.
just turned into a really good pitcher. And
Jared
yeah, he
Jones
did.
pitching his ass off.
Like he
He,
gets credit for
yeah, he does.
if your players are playing well, the coach gets credit for it.
Yeah, but like, I
Darren
don't know if
Moreno,
I'm like out here like trumpeting around Oscar Marine, and I don't think you guys are either. Just like
Yeah,
I
I'm not
think
saying
there are
Oscar
people that
Marine's
are
the
going to be
greatest
out
coach
there.
ever.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think there are people out there that think Marine's like the guy that you keep around. I'm okay either way. He's here. I'm okay either way.
I
If
have
they
no need
decide
to
to
get rid
just
of him.
if they decide to just completely clean house and say no more Marine, then it's like, okay, fine. But I don't think he necessarily has to go anywhere.
Same.
But I also think if you get rid of Shelton and Haynes, then I'm good with getting. I think you get rid of Marine as well. Just get rid of all of them.
I would hold on to Marine and wait for the next 10 years to decide. That's
Hey,
what I would do. Again, I have no need to get rid of him. Andy Haynes, absolutely. Like, you are failing. Oscar Marine's not failing. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't have to get rid of him. I'm going to hold on to him. I have no need to. You bring in a new manager, he's like, listen, I want this guy. Then you
Dude,
can
I talked about the 2020 podcasts. We want to rewind those and let's replay our Marine thoughts.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Triage himself.
I think we wanted him fired within like a month.
Right.
Well, I think we wanted everybody fired in 2020.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
That was just a terrible year.
There was only 60 games. Imagine if there was 162 that year. But okay, so we talked players. We talked about Marine, Andy Haynes, Derek Shelton. What other level we have?
How about before we get to the clear next level, I do want to talk. Like I said, this is an entire organizational failure, catastrophe, top to bottom. So before we get to like the next level, which I think everybody agrees is Ben Cherington, right? I think that's the next level. Before we get there, there's another guy that I still kind of want to talk about, and that's International Scouting Director Junior Vizcaíno. He took over international scouting in 2017. Since then, one player has made the majors, and that's Luis Ortiz. Only player. Only one. Like that, and international talent obviously takes a little bit longer to move through the system and make an impact at the major league level, right? Because you're signing these kids at 16, 17. But one in year 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. 8 years. 8 years. And all we've seen is Luis Ortiz. That's it. And then you'll go, oh, well, there's probably at least some prospects that are on the horizon, right? If you look up Baseball America's top 30 prospect list for the Pirates, the first international signing you'll see on the list is Omar Alfonso at number 20. There are no international signees in the top 19 prospects of this system. There's none. The only ones that are in there, from the Dominican complex. Let me clarify that, because Sung Si Chang's in there at number 12. He technically counts, but that's a whole other market. But Omar Alfonso is the highest ranked prospect in the system that has come out of the Dominican complex. You spent $25 million or so over the last 4 years on international.
All the BAMTech
prospects.
money went.
I'll say, if there's one way to like level the playing field in Major League Baseball, it's through the draft, and it's through international free agency. The Pirates have because of who they are, they get a little bit extra money to spend in international free agency, and they've done nothing with it. Like, there's no one that the international complex in the Dominican has done nothing.
Yep.
In basically a decade. What is he doing? Like, what are you doing down there? You're signing all these kids. What are you doing with them?
Bring back Renee Guile.
But like, there's no one to be excited about.
Let me say something and add on to that, which makes another layer to this and big picture thinking. You're absolutely correct. And I think, I mean, you're the one that tweeted out there, and I think Nesbitt had in one of his articles or whatever, when we were talking about this at the beginning of the year, like each draft, the amount of war that's, come out of it, and like you don't see it anymore. Like that's one of the things that the Pirates were the forefront of. You had your Martes, you had your Polanco's, and again, like you can think whatever you want for Polanco, but he was still a top prospect. He still had value in the major leagues. Like they were finding guys that were coming up and making the majors and such. Like you're saying, like if you can't spend money in major league free agency, find other ways. And that's what they were doing. That hasn't been the case for a while. Yeah, since Gaio. But that hasn't been the case. And I felt like their philosophy changed a little bit, because like what they were doing back in the day was they were more or less throwing darts. We have this amount of money to spend. We're going to throw it, and we're going to sign 50 plus players for all these little, contracts. And now I feel like they've been kind of touching some of the top level prospects internationally, top 10 guys, spending, more bonus money on one player opposed to a bunch on just many tens of them. Right. So like the philosophy's changed a little bit, and you're saying, hey, they're going after better talent. Maybe that'll come to fruition. And it's not. It's not. I mean, Shalin Polanco was the big name. Like, hey, this is the largest signing bonus they've had since what's his face, Heredia, right? And nothing. And it kind of keeps going each year. Now it's this guy. Now it's that guy. Nothing. It is a problem. It's a major problem. Now here's the extra layer to that. You said 2017, right? Right, Jim? 2017 is when Junior Vascano took over?
2017.
Yeah. So that means he was a Neil guy, wasn't he?
Yep.
Yeah. One of the things we keep talking about was you saw how bad the development was when Neil left. The development was terrible. Drafting, scouting, everything. And when Ben came in, what did he do? He kept all the guys. He kept the problematic issues with the Pittsburgh Pirates. The fundamental problems with a small market team. The Pirates, who can't spend a free agency, don't draft well, they don't develop well. Ben Cherington came in and said, oh, you guys are good. I want you guys. I like you. Stay. What are we seeing today in 2024? They don't draft well. They don't develop well. There's nothing coming up. Now, on the pitching side, you can argue that. Fine. Fair. I agree. The hitting's, I think, even worse. Hell, you had Neil Walker. You had Starling Marte. You had Andrew McCutchen. Like, you had guys come up. What the hell is here on the hitting side? What the hell have you done? Nothing.
Even on the pitching side, it's only the American talent. That's it. So like you're almost thinking, yeah, there's like the individual instruction is working for the pitching. And I said, if you haven't read those two articles I referenced earlier, DK's and Tim's, they're good. They kind of go through this, but like the American pitchers are doing well. And I don't know if it's just because of the individual approach and saying, hey, go to tread, go to driveline, go to these places. The international players aren't doing that. Like they're being sent to these places. Like they're like the American pitchers are being sent to these pitch players, these coaches, these outside coaches, and said, hey, work on this. And it's working for them, right? The international players aren't getting that, and they're not getting better. Again, there are zero international pitchers. There's Wilbur Dotel at 26, and then David Matoma at 25. But like that's it from a pitching standpoint. And those are also guys who like they're not in the higher levels. They're not. Matoma's exciting, but that's just because he's just a unique prospect, right? He throws really hard. He's super young, but like he's in rookie ball, right? it's just not translating to the international talent whatsoever in all aspects.
Yeah, DiNardo kind of stole my point there with the 2017. He's been here that long, and it goes back to what we talked about. Not enough got changed over, and truthfully, DiNardo, I thought you were a little nice about it. Like, I think it's just lazy. Like, we don't want to go out, and we don't want to get the best guys to develop these guys. Like, how many times do we have to watch a Rowanzi Contreras come through this organization, light up minor league baseball, and just fail miserably? How many times do we have to watch Henry Davis light up the minors, fail miserably? When are you going to make a change, man? I know it leads to point number 4, but if you're going to not going to make the change, someone has to.
Change means urgency.
Yeah. Instead, we have complacency.
Bingo.
We're good winning 78 games because maybe if we get lucky, we win 84.
Which brings us to the next level, which is Ben Cherington.
Should be level number 1 because, yeah.
And I mean, I've had a problem with Ben Cherington from the get-go because I don't think he needed to do what he did. I don't think he needed to rebuild this team when he took it over. I think Neil Huntington left him with enough pieces to work with, to just come in and just add to it and supplement it with actual major league talent to just go for it right away. Instead, he took the route that guaranteed him job security, right? When you start a rebuild, you're basically saying, all right, you can't really touch me for 5 years because this is all part of the plan. It's all part of the plan. We're going to be really, really shitty for a long time. And you know what? That's the plan. And so if we're shitty, I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do, right? That's number one issue. Like, they didn't have to do the rebuild. And so then it's like, okay, they did it. They refused to even call it a rebuild. At no point did they even say they were rebuilding, but obviously that's what they did. They sold off all their assets and they just loaded the system up with as many prospects as they could. But guess what? None of the prospects panned out. They were awful at identifying talent and then developing it. None of these people who they've acquired in these trades have done anything. Like, none of them.
David Bednar exists, but yeah.
But overall, you traded a lot and you didn't get
They got a closer.
They got a closer who's now terrible. He was really good for 3 years and now he's awful.
Wow, they were terrible.
Yeah. When you need him to be good, now he's bad, right? So it's like, he didn't have to do the rebuild. That was a decision that he made just to guarantee job security for 5 years. And so that's what he's done. He's guaranteed job security while being god-awful at the major league level, forcing us to just sit through these terrible, terrible baseball teams year in and year out when we've already had to do this for 30 years. This isn't something where it's like, you know what? We've had it pretty good lately, you guys. You know what? We can afford to, sit back, watch a bad team for a couple of years. No, this is a fan base that has been just dragged through the ringer over and over and over and over again. And we're just desperate to see a good team. Yet this organization refuses to give us one. They're deliberately giving us a bad product year in and year out. And they didn't have to do that. That was a choice. That was a choice that he made when he came in here. And he did it so he could accumulate a ton of talent so that in 2024 and 2025 and 2026, there could be a payout. Well, guess what? Where's the payout? We're sitting here now 8 games under 500 in the 5th year of Ben Cherington. You've got a pretty good pitching staff that you've put together, right? Let's give him some credit there. But Paul Skeens, generational pitcher. He gets credit for drafting Paul Skeens. He gets credit for developing Jared Jones. The organization gets credit for that. Mitch Keller has turned into a good pitcher. They all get the pitching philosophy in this organization. I have no problem with. But where are the hitters? You look at the best hitters on this team. The best offensive players, Brian Reynolds, not a Ben Cherington guy. Ono Cruz, not a Ben Cherington guy. Andrew McCutcheon, a David Littlefield guy. He wasn't even a Huntington guy. Like it was from the guy before him, right? And then the only reason why he's here is because he had to go to the owner and say, hey, I'll play for basically nothing, and you'll sell a bunch of jerseys if I come back. And they're like, okay, that sounds like a good plan. And then you could even throw Cabrian Hayes in there, and we've thrown a lot of shade at Cabrian Hayes, and has been well deserved on his part. But you could say over the last 5 years, Cabrian Hayes has been one of the better offensive performers on this team from a position player standpoint, right? But also not a Ben Cherington guy. Like, who has he brought in that has made any significant impact whatsoever to this team? It's Joey Bart, who just fell in his lap one day. They needed a catcher, and the Giants just happened to DFA one at the time that he needed one. He's had 5 years to bring in offensive talent, and he hasn't done it.
Connor Joe, also a Neil guy.
Yeah.
Like, that's his best free agent or trade. I think that's his best hitting acquisition. And truly, it was technically a Neil guy also. I know it's ironic, but also the thing is, you probably make the argument that Connor Joe is his best acquisition.
Trademark
that can't be good. Like, it's a role player. His biggest success story is a role player. Now probably leaning towards Joey Bart, but again, that reason. I'm with you. I'm with you. What I disagree on, and this is like a hard disagree, I will not blame him for choosing the rebuild. I'm not going to go down the path where he didn't have to, and that was a choice and it was bad. I can understand why you do it. I was fine with him choosing to. The issue is he made that choice and he failed miserably at doing it. And what kills me is from the get-go, this is before you guys are on, when it was just Ryan and I, from the get-go when he was hired, we were just kind of like, we didn't want him. We wanted Arnold to begin with. Our reasons we were leery on Ben Cherington was there's just a lot of similarities between him and Neil. And they hired him. It's like, all right, well, thanks, Corn Ferry. That's what happened. Let's go with it. And he started making his mark on this team. And I would say we kind of appreciated it at first. Hey, he's going for a lot of upside guys, where like Neil Huntington was a lot of safer guys who made trades. It was got a lot of guys that were like, you're close. You don't see a whole lot of upside, but they're close. Where he was going like, a lot of low minors, a lot of high variance, but a lot of upside. Talking about the first trade. Well, I guess the Starling Marte trade we didn't really like. But again, like with the Joe Musgrove, the Hudson Heads at first, at first, like you're seeing this, and
you guys
I'm gonna watch
idiots.
that. But no, listen, Tyler. But for real though, with every trade, we became more skeptic, and we kept getting called out time and time again about you guys are idiots about this. And it just seemed like the more and more trades he made, the less and less we liked Ben Cherington. And now his whole plan in year 5 has come to fruition. What has come out of those trades? Like you said, there's David Bednar.
That's it. Andy Rodriguez, maybe.
But
Johan
we
Ovied.
don't know. That's
Maybe.
what I'm alluding to. And that's what I want to make sure we're perfectly clear on, because he stalled out in AAA a bit. He came up and he did not perform. And now he has Tommy John. And I'm not writing him off by any means, but he has shown exactly what every other player has shown so far. You're knocking on Henry Davis how bad he looks. It wasn't like Endy was performing last year at the plate. He looked good defensively, but he's doing exactly what every other player has done coming up to the system. Failed.
So maybe this is a lame point of view here, but I feel like we probably should have been done with Ben Cherington the day that they won the lottery and got the number 1 overall pick, and the entire front office was celebrating. That was the day we should have just pulled the plug on this entire thing. Because if you were celebrating losing that heavily, I want nothing to do with you. And I don't think that got enough credit that this team is jumping around. And I know they had a shot to get Paul Skeens wasn't really
It was Dylan Cruz. Like, that was the Dylan Cruz sweepstakes at that point.
was.
Yeah.
Right.
But you are celebrating losing openly in front of a camera. Have some awareness, man. Like, we are jumping around high-fiving each other because we suck so bad. This is our GM.
Yeah, it definitely. I think it got plenty of attention too. Like that got a lot of attention.
It's still a meme.
Yeah, it still
but
is.
Not enough. Like, it doesn't get played back enough. This is your GM right now.
Yeah.
Jumping around because you're the worst team in baseball.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, that's a good point, and it's just it brings me back to my original point. Like, I never wanted this rebuild to even happen, because if they had just not done a rebuild, they would have lost a lot less games than they did. They probably wouldn't be any worse than they are now. You know what? They wouldn't have Paul Skeens. So that would
maybe
suck. You know, having Paul Skeens is fun, but like we wouldn't have had to go through these 4 years of terrible, terrible baseball to just get us to this point where, guess what? Ben Cherington's probably, like, we're saying there needs to be a shakeup. Ben Cherington is not going to be part of that shakeup. Ben Cherington is going to be back in 2025. He's going to have this offseason to make the 2025 team a successful team. Like, he's going to be given at least one more year to see this thing through. That's why you do a rebuild. Again, it's all about job security. Like, he did it so that he could have a bad 2020. Like, he gave himself a year where he can fail and he can come back next year and say, well, you know what? Now's the year to do it. It's 6 years of job security doing what he did. So he's going to be back next year, as much as he shouldn't be. But all we're doing at that point is just, I feel like we're just delaying the inevitable. Like, everything that we've seen up to this point shows us that this front office ain't it. This ain't it. They're not getting it done. They can't acquire offensive talent at all. The pitching is good enough. The pitching is good enough that they can be a playoff team, right? But offensively, just a ghost opening up my door behind me. Offensively, like, they can't do anything. They
the ghost of Bob Nutting.
Like, they just cannot develop. They cannot develop anything internally. They can't identify talent externally, and they can't acquire anybody via a trade. Like, this trade deadline, Brian De La Cruz. Like, what even is that? Now they've got Brian De La Cruz for 3 more years. Like, the dude's probably a non-tender candidate this offseason.
Yeah,
like, truly. He's a how are you comfortable paying Brian De La Cruz $4 million next year in arbitration? I don't know. I don't know if I am.
I'm not.
So, like, if it were me, you just rip off the Band-Aid, go find someone else and say, okay, win next year. But that's just not going to happen. He's going to get another year. And if he fails, that means we're 1 year closer to wasting Brian Reynolds' prime, 1 year more of wasting Mitch Keller's prime, 1 more year of wasting Paul Skeens, 1 more year of wasting Jared Jones. At that point, you bring in a new GM, and, like, us fans will say, you know what, you've got enough pieces, put it together. But that new GM in 2026 may just go, you know what, it's time to blow this thing up.
That's what I fear.
Let's trade the assets that we have. Let's trade what's left of Brian Reynolds, Mitch Keller, and try to go for it in 2029. And then all we just did is we just wasted a decade of our lives watching Pittsburgh Pirates baseball, just like we've wasted the previous 3 decades.
I hate my life.
Can I add something here?
Sure.
Do you know where Matt Arnold's at?
Yeah, he's in first place in the NL Central with Milwaukee Brewers.
First, second, first. The year that we thought that they were going to, take a step back because they also traded Corbin Burns first.
Yeah, I still I don't get it. I don't get why Ben Cherington is still around. All he's done is be in last place his entire career.
Year 5.
All he does is finish in last place because he's not good at his job. Maybe he's really good at being like a supplemental piece in a front office. He's not good at being the head guy. Maybe he's nice enough. I don't know. I don't know the guy. He sucks at what he's doing. I don't know. What more is there to say about this fella other than the fact that he sucks at his job? And he sucked for over a decade. All he's done is suck.
But he has had that World Series.
My God, I could have won the World Series as that GM. Just show up.
It's bad. It sucks. But I think the biggest thing is it's disappointing. It's so disappointing because there is talent on this team still. That there is talent. That's why we're fighting. Do something because this could be a team that's dangerous in the playoffs. And that's the irony of this. We're talking about how bad it is, but yet if this team is in the playoffs, they could be dangerous. It's still close. I don't. It's close. I just don't trust that they can get it there. And that's the problem. And you were talking about, Ben Cherington's job is safe. But that's even more reason I think Derek Shelton has to go and such. Because it's only going to be safe for so long. If next year they don't do anything, then what's his excuse? You have to cut. At least right now you can say, you know what, Bob? Shelty ain't cutting it. We got to get rid of him. Because if you keep him and you're not doing anything, you're gone too.
Yeah.
Can I just say real quick? It goes back to what we've been saying about this being the window. And we just wasted a year of that window.
Yeah.
Well, it's a year of the window, but it's also, like I said, it's just another, Brian Reynolds will be 1 year older next year. We've seen Brian Hayes
30.
already, the health issues with his back. That's just going to be he's going to be 1 more year older. Mitch Keller is going to be 1 more year older. Paul Skeens is going to get a full year of service time this year. That's 1 more year that you don't have Paul Skeens. And guess what? Hate to break it to you guys, but you have technically team control of a guy for 6 years, but do you think the Pirates are just going to let Paul Skeens walk and get nothing in return? When have they ever let that happen? Has that happened since Barry Bonds?
No.
Not for that type of a player, especially no.
So you do the math on it. 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028, 2029 is year 6. You're probably not having Paul Skeens for year 6. You may not even have for year 5. That's what they did with Garrett Cole. So it's how many more years do you have? How many more years do you have? How many years are you going to have Mitch Keller, Jared Jones, Paul Skeens, and then hopefully Bubba Chandler all together?
And
2 years.
And Jim, just to mention one more part of that, if you fire Ben Cherington, go ahead and cut off another year of that Paul Skeens because he's probably getting traded too.
There you go. You fire Ben Cherington after 2025. If next year is a failure and you bring in a new GM who says, you know what? Time to rebuild this team. There's nothing in the system.
Those pieces.
There's nothing in the farm system. The major league team can't hit.
God.
Time to rebuild this thing.
Yep. And we just completely skipped over the part that there's nothing in the farm. Literally nothing.
It's number 27 farm system in baseball, according to Baseball America. 27.
It is 2001 all over again. You have Jason Kendall and Brian Giles.
Now, with all that being said, Ben Cherington will have an opportunity this offseason to fix this offense and get this team right. But if he doesn't, it could get bad. I mean, it's already bad, but it could get worse. Because if Ben Cherington gets fired, you're then at just like you have an unknown. You can bring in somebody who will say, you know what, we've got some pieces here, let's go for it. But that's kind of not how it's not how small market GMs have operated in the past. You usually don't have small market GMs come in and say, yeah, you know what, we're gonna win. We're gonna win right away. It's just you haven't seen that. We've never seen that with the Pirates ever. Never seen it.
Yeah. I guess my argument to that, and please don't tear me up by saying this, but Bob Nutting would have to allow that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Even Bob Nutting, I'm not so sure if he's looking for a GM to blow it up. He might be looking for the GM that says his call is you have to continue winning. Because I don't know if Bob Nutting realizes, even him, I think he's like, we can't rebuild again.
Well, I think that's the final level here, right? And then we had Stephen Nesbitt on at the beginning of the year to talk about it.
Yeah.
Bob Nutting seems perfectly content being mediocre and just, hey, you know what? We got a really nice ballpark that people want to go to. Let's just sell that and I'll make money. And my product, my team that I own will just continue to grow value because that's what sports teams do. And when Bob Nutting dies, he'll pass down a $2 billion organization to his children, and they'll just do the exact same thing. Like until Bob Nutting makes the decision to say, you know what, I'm not accepting this anymore. That's what Matt, like that's all. He's ultimately in charge of the whole thing. He doesn't get involved in baseball decisions, but he's the one in charge. And if this is acceptable to him, it's not going to change. It's not. There's no incentive to change. You look at any organization you've ever worked for, right? If the leader of your organization doesn't actually want to put a good product out there or put good service out there, if you own a restaurant or have a good menu of food items, right? Your restaurant, your business, whatever it is, it's never going to succeed. Like that's ultimately what it comes down to. He's in charge. It's up to him to make this organization a winner. And right now, he seems perfectly content not being one.
Yeah, if I could be honest, if Ben Cherington gets fired and they bring in a new GM that wants to rebuild, I'm done here, fellas. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I can't watch this anymore. Like we're already employing guys I don't want to root for. I can't do this. And I feel like a lot of people will be in the same boat. Fan wise, I know we talked a lot about the apathy that's starting to kick in with this fan base. And it's happened over the last couple of years. And I feel like it started to come back around where fans were starting to be more re-energized about this team. If this doesn't get figured out probably next year, I think it's going to get ugly. And we might be talking about this team playing in another city.
I think as long as PNC Park exists, that's not going to happen.
Well, if there's money out there.
Nah, I don't think that'll happen. But because
know.
again, they're making money. They're making money. They got a sweet rent deal. There's a built-in fan base. Like I don't see that happening.
How much longer until that lease is up?
2030.
30.
But I don't
6 years away.
I don't see it happening.
I don't either, but I mean, like in the back of my mind, I could see something crazy if you know what, that's off-season conversation. We can get into that then.
Yeah. I guess my 2 cents on Nutting was I was hopeful because, like, for the first time, he started speaking out on things. And it started with the firing of Neil Huntington. Like, why are these guys going elsewhere and getting better? We can't have that. This is terrible. We want to win. There was a lot of lip service. And like we kept saying, look, okay, well, actions are what mattered most. But for the first time, we got the lip service like that. That was kind of interesting. And then he had a sit-down interview with Mackey. You saw the Chapman deal afterwards. We were kind of skeptical on why or whatnot. But regardless, whatever. Then there's reports that, well, not reports. He came out and said it. Hey, this deadline, money's there. We need to be proactive. We need to make moves early if we can. And then it leaked of what? That's not what he's telling us. So let's take a look at this deadline. What happened? They made moves. They added payroll. And they traded Martin Perez to even out payroll.
They didn't.
That's what I'm alluding to. And they traded Martin Perez to even out payroll. So no payroll was added. They didn't build upon it. So the way they operated told me, you know what? I actually trust what Cherington and company were saying, that Bob told them that there is no more money, because that's how they operated in order for them to make these moves. And that's probably why they had to do it the very last day, because they probably had to find someone to take off Perez, which they finally did with San Diego. But nothing was added as far as payroll goes. So to me, Bob Nutting, you're a fraud. You still are. You still are. This has been lip service the entire time. Nothing has changed in that aspect. You want to win. Of course, I would prefer the Pittsburgh Pirates win, but not at cost of where I want to be dollar-wise. And it showed this offseason when, hey, the reason you're not spending for all these years is because when it's go time, you're going to go and push the throttle. And they pushed it all the way to 29th in payroll this year. That was the throttle. And then added the deadline. So, yeah. I don't like Cherington. I don't like Shelton. But you know what? The reason I don't like Shelton, but he has been given a bad hand. I don't like Cherington, but he's been given a bad hand. So, yes, it absolutely starts with Nutting. And shit hasn't changed. Sorry, Bob. You're the same despicable owner as you've been. Enough reports out there to show it. Enough leaks out there to show it. And you know what? You proved it.
I think
No
they're all
argument
full
here.
of shit. I think all of them are full of shit. And they're all terrible.
I think it's just, again, it's a top-down approach. Like, the owner of the team doesn't demand this team to be good. Like, that's not what his number one goal is. If you're the owner of a sports team and your number one goal isn't winning games, you're not going to succeed. Like, you're just not. It's going to be tough to succeed because you need to have that. You still need to have that leadership up top that's demanding winning. Until you have that, yeah, it's possible, but it makes it difficult because then you get, like you said, Donardo, you just get complacent in being mediocre. Like, it's part of who this organization is. Again, for 30 years, it's 2024, since 1993, this team's made the playoffs 3 times. They've played 8 playoff games in 31 years. Like, what are we doing? Like, that's an organizational failure, just top to bottom, and it starts at the top. So yeah, we can talk about, like I said, we went through the levels. We can talk about 26-man roster changes. We can talk about coaching changes. We can talk about front office changes, but it all starts with the owner, and the owner doesn't demand that the team be good. When the owner's not demanding that the team be good, there's little incentive to actually be good. No one else is really trying that hard to be good. or you accept mediocrity, which is what this team's been doing.
If I can maybe add one more thing here before we wrap up and get out of here. I completely agree with everyone's on the same page that Bob Nutting is a giant problem in this organization. This is why I don't think Ben Cherington is the answer. This is why I don't think Derek Shelton's the answer. Donald Sterling was the worst owner of all time, and somehow the Clippers figured it out because they hired Doc Rivers. Donald Sterling was probably 30 times worse than Bob Nutting, but they were a playoff team. They acquired talent. They had smart people in the organization that could get by that. Ben Cherington's not smart enough to get by the Bob Nutting issues. Derek Shelton's not smart enough to get by it. You have to hire special people, and this team has not done that yet. That's where I'm at with them. We know Bob Nutting's the issue. We know he's the major issue that we don't talk about him that much because we can't get rid of Bob Nutting.
It's a fixed thing, right? Like that's not something that,
That's why we talk about Derek Shelton. That's why we talk about Ben Cherington. You need special people in this organization to win. That's how the Rays are successful. They hire very smart people. Well, yeah, but at some point you have.
So do we talk about Travis Williams now too?
You have to be able to get really smart people in your organization.
But even to Travis Williams' point, like he hires one guy. He hires Ben Cherington. That's it. And then the baseball, like Travis Williams doesn't hire a scouting director. Travis Williams doesn't hire a AAA, a roving instructor, right? That's baseball operations. The one thing the Pirates do separate those two things. Travis Williams is Ben's boss, right? But Ben is in charge.
Accountability, though.
Right.
But again,
Ben is in charge of everything baseball ops. So yeah, like Travis Williams, we want to talk about that. Yeah, like Travis Williams should say, hey, you know what? To make my life easier, I need a good product on the field. And Ben Cherington's in charge of the product on the field, and Ben Cherington hasn't succeeded there.
Right.
So yeah, at some point,
so fix it or you're gone.
Yeah. Again, it's entirely top to bottom here.
I have a new gripe, by the way.
Get smart people.
With my whole thing about talking about Bob Nutting, something popped in my head, and now I'm really pissed. Because what is something that we do every single year?
I have no idea.
We create the GoFundMe to collect for the charity bags. They didn't do the damn charity bag. They didn't do the charity game this year.
Have they not done it yet, or they aren't doing it at all?
They haven't done it yet, and I'm looking at their webpage, and it's still the 2023 up on there for the charity game.
Well, there you go.
Just. I'm just in a bad mood now. This whole organization. They're not even doing the charity bags. Even for the good causes, they don't care anymore. All right. Are we done? It has been an hour and a half, and I feel like we still aren't done, but we need to be done.
I'm done.
Yeah, I think we. I mean, we basically just said everybody in the organization needs fired.
And the owner
that's essentially what we just said, and that the owner needs to completely change his philosophy on basically everything that he's done his entire life. So yeah, I think we've said enough.
All right. Well, with that said, we'll be back tomorrow night. Post-game show.
We haven't given away a sandwich in forever. Let's give away some sandwiches tomorrow. My God.
Or we can drop 11 in a row. Your choice, Derek. Good or bad luck tomorrow? What's going to happen? Because it's nothing but luck.
Paul Skeen's on the mound against George Kirby. So hey, the Mariners just got one hit, I think, by Oakland.
Did they?
I think so. So yeah, tomorrow might be one of those like 0-0 15 inning games. Two teams that just cannot hit.
Is Tyler doing a post game tomorrow?
No, I'm off.
Oh, then it's not going to be tomorrow then.
No.
When's your next post game?
No rain delays. Saturday. So we'll have a rain delay
Saturday will be that game, Jim.
And then we'll have extra innings. And I'm on with Jim.
It's actually incredible. The Mariners have scored 16 less runs this year than the Pirates.
Well, be prepared to score 17 tomorrow.
So expect some fireworks this weekend.
I'm done. Yeah. All right, everyone. I don't know how you do it, but thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Do all the fun stuff, like hit like and subscribe, because that's fun to listen to this for an hour and a half.
Yeah, no, like I said, thanks for everybody for watching. 59% of you watching this right now aren't subscribed to the page. So just hit the subscribe button on YouTube, right? It's not that hard. Hit the subscribe button. We give away free sandwiches after Pirates games. We're group therapy when you need it for days like tonight. And yeah, when things are good, it's fun. It's just not great right now.
No, it's not. So don't blame us. It's not good right now.
I feel like X Sprouted right here. There you go. Thanks, X Sprouted.
There you go.
Yeah. And if you're listening on the podcast, leave a review. We love you guys too.
We really do. Because again, I don't know how you guys do it. We know why we do this, because we're idiots. I feel like you guys aren't idiots, so I don't know why you do it. Maybe you are.
Everybody's just sick. We're all sickos.
But let's get out of here. So yeah, we'll be back tomorrow night for the post-game show. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Hey, you all.
Hey, you all. Thank you for watching. I know we try to provide the most entertaining content that we can, and we'd love to spread it to as many people as possible. So I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but if you could take the 5 seconds to like this video and subscribe to the page, it helps out so much more than you know. Thank you, and let's go Bucks.